Welcome to Related Conversations with Malachi. Right now I'm in here because my mom went on a trip with her friends. She'll be back in a few hours, but she asked me to do the intro because
Boy! Well, that was my son acting like me, and it makes sense because today we are talking about motherhood. I'll be talking to ladies only today. We had to bid Drew adieu while the ladies talk about all things that makes us mothers. And we're going to get into it. I'm going to have Kat, and for the first time, we're going to have Kerrian joining to speak on that. So let's get into it.
I'm still here.
Welcome back, Kat. Welcome for the first time, Kerrian. Nice to see you, ladies. Everybody's looking beautiful. How is
Thank you.
everyone?
Good.
Good. Love to hear it. So we're just gonna jump right into it. So we're gonna start with a question, like we do. So for motherhood, are you the kind of mother that you set out to be?
I want to say yes and no. I can't say totally yes, but I can't say totally no either. Um, I am the best mother that I can be for the life that I have been given, so to put it in perspective, I've had situations that took away from me being the mother I wanted to be.
Mm,
So because of that, I'm doing the best I can, but it's not how I wanted motherhood to look for me, if that makes sense.
so do you feel like satisfied with what you do, because or do you give yourself understanding to kind of bring the rationale to be satisfied? Like,
I give myself the grace,
mm,
because everybody goes through things,
mm,
that shape the type, even to the type of parent you are. Everyone has gone through something. Unfortunately, most of my motherhood journey, due to circumstances outside of my control, I was in survival mode.
mm.
So I'm in survival mode, and in addition to that, I'm raising a child. So there were several things happening at once, which didn't allow me to be the type of mother that I wanted to be, as far as, oh, I wanted to read to my son every night. Oh, I wanted to be able to make sure I was an active participant in every aspect of his life. But because I was in survival mode for the first 10 years of his life, I couldn't show up in certain ways that I wanted to.
I get that. I get that. Is that do you relate to that? Are you the kind of mother that you set out to be? Or are you still figuring out who that is? Like, what's your story?
Um, I could agree. I could agree. I think that when life hits you a certain way and survival, one of the key things you said was survival mode, right? And when you're in survival mode, you don't get to be present in everything. And survival mode also robs you from realizing how much you're missing until you probably get to a certain space with yourself, or in this case with your child or children. So oftentimes I think that we as moms, we do the best that we can with what we have. And for me, I can relate. I've experienced a lot of survival mode situations, and I'm not hard on myself though, because I feel like God knows exactly where we're going to be, where we need to be, and how we're going to be with our children. Oftentimes, we look at other families or other mothers, and we're always going to feel like I could do more, I could be more. And in all reality, nobody knew that we were going to experience the level of um, I don't want to say trauma, but we never knew the type of life we were going to experience that would offset us into survival mode. So,
Hmm.
that being said, I often find myself, especially as my child getting older, I often find myself feeling like, yeah, there's a lot of things I would have done different, especially because of the type of person I am. See, that's the difference. Go ahead.
No, no, no. Go ahead. I want to ask a question because I feel like I hear you guys saying like survival mode, right? And because circumstances you weren't able to do the things that you want to do. Are you feeling like because like I took this kind of, I think I went in a different direction. So it's like, as far as like setting out the mother that you wanted to be, is it like the things that you were able to provide because of survival mode, or the emotional presence and things like that sort that kind of colors you guys answers?
I
For
think
me, it
for
was
me,
both.
I think it's all of it for me. You know, there's times when you think about it. Sometimes, you know, if I think about how I was raised as a child, and like you said the mother you want to be. For me, I didn't necessarily want kids growing up. You know,
That part.
so you know, when you have a child, innately, I feel like, you know, I feel like my mother instincts kicked in. So I knew I was
Yeah.
going to be nurturing. I knew I was going to be loving. I knew that I was going to be present to the capacity I knew, but I did it to the capacity I needed to be. But in terms of survival mode, I that I couldn't expect. That I didn't know what was
Mm,
waiting for me. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah.
I had this baby and I'm gonna protect this baby. I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna show up. I'm gonna love. But now we're in life and everything that we need to do, you know, you have to work. You gotta hustle. You gotta do certain things. You gotta plan. You have to be very, you know, you're raising another human being. And
Mm-hmm.
then we don't have a blueprint to motherhood.
We
So when you
do
say be the type of
not.
mother, you know what I'm saying? And so I personally wasn't raised with my mom for other reasons. So, you know, I didn't realize how important or relevant it was to have an example of that, even with me still being a very present mom.
Right. I want to go to what you said, like the didn't plan to have kids, and when it came down to it. So, like, I was never gonna have nobody's kids. Do you understand? Bitch, I was gonna be the rich, sexy auntie coming in on the holidays, spoiling the kids with stuff, and blowing out of town the day after. That was my plan, okay? So when I fucking found myself pregnant, because my baby, I love my son with all my heart, but he was not a plan. He was a pleasant surprise. I was fucking terrified. First of all, I was gonna have a shmushmushman at the shmushmushman clinic because I'll be fucking damned. But but I didn't, and I want to thank your friend Kerrian, my cousin Shanice. Yes, shout out to this bitch. I blame her, and I put the onus on her for why I had my son. I also thank her because I love that little boy. But she's the reason why I didn't go have a shmushmushman, because I was going. Do you understand? However, when I decided, okay, I am going to keep this baby, I wasn't super happy about it. Even though it was my decision, I wasn't super happy about it because, like, obviously you don't want to have no kids, but bitch, you're doing all the things to have kids. So that don't make no sense. So here I am, right? But when I got that first ultrasound, I think it was like 12 weeks and the baby about this big, and I was like, that's my little peanut. I was still scared because I didn't have no motherly instincts. I had nieces and nephews, and I seen other people's babies, and it was just like, all right. I don't know how to make a bottle. I'm not changing a pimp. I don't. What do you do with a kid? I had a friend who had a kid at the and she had a kid when we was like 18. And when she would tell me, she would like, oh, her and her daughter would go to like IHOP or something. I'm thinking in my head like, what do you talk to with a kid at breakfast? That's how far removed I was. I'm dead ass. I'm dead ass. So
Like, is
so
this
when I had
possible?
my I swear to God, that's when my brain was working. So when I went to have this baby, you know, even people was like, Melanie's gonna have a baby. Like, I'm with y'all. Like, God bless this child. But that shit kicked right in. It kicked right in. And it was like, all of a sudden, I know to make a bottle. I know to dress the baby from the bottom to the top, so you got to worry about the head. I don't know where that came from. It just came to me. So I did have dreams, you know, of what I wanted to be as a mom before the baby got here. And I think, you know, regardless of like any circumstances I've had, I say yes. I think one thing nobody can ever take from me is I'm an amazing mother. My son will tell you that, he'll mean it, and I'll tell you that, and you will take it with a grain of salt, but it's true. And that's one thing nobody can take from me, because I give him everything that I need, and by starting with making sure he's first. When I decided to have a kid, my life became you centered, so that you don't have to grow up and have to heal from all the shit I put you through because I didn't do what I needed to do as a mother. I don't know many people who don't have that story, including myself, and I don't want my son to have that. That's that breaking generational curses type thing. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I think I definitely am. If I lost my job and I was unemployed for about 6 months, and we may not have been able to do all the things we want to do, and he still was never lacking.
And I think that's what it boils down to. Like, I'm not, I didn't get to be the mother I wanted to be, but my son never needed for anything. He's not lacking in any way. Like for me, finding out I was pregnant, like everybody here has said, they were not looking to be a mother initially. Like initially, that was not my goal either. Like it was
You just
like
wanted to
my
bust
son.
nuts.
I'm telling you, for the first like 6 weeks that I was pregnant, my son was an ulcer.
Mm.
um People literally had to force me to take a pregnancy test because you couldn't tell me that I was pregnant. There was no way, no, it's not possible. And to find out you're pregnant, that is the scariest thing in the world, because you're like, okay, now I have this new level of responsibility to unlock. I'm now responsible for a whole nother life,
Right.
and so it became a situation where because of my circumstances, like my mother was my best friend, but it turned out that right before my son was born, my mother died.
Mm.
So here I'm dealing with my father's death, mother's death, being left the house and having a child. So I'm dealing with all of this and growing up literally within a time span of a few months to prepare for this child. But it's, throughout all of it, my goal was to make sure that he was okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask that too, like speaking for like motherhood and whatnot. We had moms before we were moms. And growing up as a child, what kind of impact do you think your mother's parenting has on the parenting that you do now or have done? Carrie
I,
No.
Me?
Right.
Because I listened very intently. I'm like, I thought you were gonna speak. I wasn't raised with my mom, but I had other women in my life, interesting women in my life, honestly. But what I will say is that um, the age that I departed from my mom was the age where, when my son reached the same age, which was 5, is when I think I realized a lot of things about motherhood. And so, um, if I never felt like I needed her before, um, if I never questioned myself prior to the age 5, my son turning age 5, like there was like this aha moment. So all of that to be said, I feel I had a very blank slate. I had a blank slate to start with. So, you know, I only had little gaps to fill and to wander and to ponder about consistently, in terms of like, I wonder, but I'm a person who doesn't stay in that I wonder phase because I'm here and we're here now. So, um, it's almost like I think of things like if someone in your family did drugs but you never met them, I can't even speak about that person that I now know that was a drug dealer, or excuse me, like a drug abuser, I should say. It can't really have an impact on me because you were never around. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? But what I will say is I know that my mother was a loving woman. She didn't willingly choose to not be around and not be a part of my life. And so oftentimes I would think about how I would look. Simple things like, I don't bake and I don't care to bake. But I've learned that my mother likes to bake, and I'm just like, maybe I would have baked if I grew up with her. You know what I'm saying? And so, when it comes to me and parenting and thinking about what I came from, everything for me is just God given, and I just take from other people and other women from around me, and then who I feel like I am naturally, because we were all born innately with something in us that I
Mhm.
think that we get to bless our child with, and then there's the outside experiences that has also shaped us, but we also have the choice to choose. Do I let those choices decide the type of mother I'm going to be? Don't get me wrong, they still shape us. But I feel like in my case, it was more of a yearning versus who are you going to be because of what you didn't have. So although I yearned after my mom, I still
Mhm.
chose to show up from a very raw and blank canvas space with my son.
Do
If that
you?
makes sense. You guys get that?
Yeah, I get what
hmm
you're saying. That's why I want, like, for a cat, because like you said, you lost your mom right at that pivotal point. Do you relate to that in the same way?
Um, a lot of it, yes. For me, the hardest part for me was becoming a mom without my mom to some extent, because my mom was like my best friend. Like
Mhm.
she was my best friend. She was my rock. She was my go-to. And she literally planned my baby shower but didn't get to see her grandson. So for me, it was a situation where I remember going to the doctors, and the doctors are like, "Oh, are you suffering from postpartum?" And I couldn't answer that because it was a situation where I'm not sad about my because of my child. I'm sad because I lost my mother. But
Right.
on the same token, it's like how who my mother was the example of how to be a mother for me.
Mhm.
She was the person I was going to go to when I wasn't sure how to do certain things, and now she's not here.
Yeah.
So it became a situation kind of to what Kerrian said. I had to then work from my own canvas as to who I am naturally and the type of mother I want to show up and be for my son, and use the memories that I have of my mother and with my mother to become the mother that I wanted to be or was looking to be.
Mm. I kind of had like a different experience than you two. Um, my mom is still here, and I grew up with my mother, but I grew up in a house with a lot of people. I have six brothers and sisters. We had cousins living with us, random other people who wasn't family, but kind of like family. And we ain't have enough room for all of us, but we made it work. Um, and then, there's a bunch of stuff like throughout time. And I feel like as people, we tend to, focus on things that are maybe like more negative to define certain stuff. And I feel like I do that with my mom, like there's positive stuff there, but because of how impactful the negative things was, that's what comes to mind when I draw that picture. And that also comes to mind when I draw that picture when it comes to parenting, and not just her. I feel like I use other people as negative examples. I seen what you did wrong, and I know I don't want to do that. And I think that's what I naturally drew on that. And I think it's because, like I said before, I didn't want no kids and fucking inconveniences. That's how I used to look at it. I swear to God. I swear to God, it was. But because I looked at it that way, I would see like, oh, I don't know why she didn't pop that little boy, or why she didn't feed this. I see all the negative things. So when it came to me raising my kid and being this mom, I'm incorporating all those criticisms I had of other people, because bitch, you can't criticize niggas and then think that you're gonna get away with doing that shit. So it does make me a better mom, especially because I've grown. I've never been like cynical, but that's a cynical kind of mindset, right? But I feel like I use that. So I would say I do owe the kind of mother that I am to my experience from being parented, because I wanted different from my son. And
You
he
wanted the
had,
opposite.
yes. And it's just for impact, you know what I mean? So I think, whenever something happens, if I have to tell him something or we have to do something, especially if it's like disciplinary or something he doesn't want to do, I think like my reaction in this moment could be a core fucking memory for him. For me, this is Tuesday and da da da. But for him, in 10 years, when he goes to think about his mom, this could be one of the defining factors, like it does with my mother. I'm not saying it's fair that I do that, but it is honest. It is my honesty. And that could be his honesty. And I don't want that. So I literally try to not give him what I think would taint and color him later from his relationship with his mom, because issues with your mother fuck you up for life. There are people who don't even know how to voice that this is the problem, but they're dealing with the actions from this thing that's been messing with them, traumatizing them for 20, 30 years. You know what I mean?
It's interesting that you say that. So I didn't have my mom, but I have the memory that my mom didn't give me up. So that memory alone, as an adult woman now, has given me a certain peace, you know?
Hmm.
It's just different the way circumstances played out. But I say all that to say is that I didn't have my mom, but when it comes to parenting, I draw or I pull from my experiences with my dad. Some would say I was a daddy's girl. I'm from Jamaica, and true island parents, they are a piece of work. But I say all of that to say, my father, one of the things that was really important to me with my son is communication. If anybody knows me, I think I over communicate, because I definitely did not experience the level of communication my son gets with my dad. And to speak to your point in terms of you highlighting the opposite of what you experience is what you want to give your child, that's what I did for my son. My father wasn't a person who who felt talking was necessary. It was do as I say and that's it. And I didn't like that. So it's interesting because I feel like we're growing up in a generation now where I feel like these kids get too much voice. You understand? And they're too entitled because this generation is trying to give them something that we didn't have, which is being present, which is
Yeah,
not
we're
so much giving you a
overcorrecting.
voice. Right. Which is not so much giving you a voice where you can feel like you can just say whatever to me, but trying to create a space for you where you can come and openly speak. But some of these kids don't understand what that means. So I say that to highlight my point with my dad is that because I know I didn't get this from my dad, and at one point I was either living with him or I was living with my stepmother, and I saw what that did to me. And then, as a child, you do become very withdrawn and you do become very sad at times, feeling like nobody hears me, nobody sees me. So, like you're saying, thinking about 10 years from now, what will my child think of? In regards to how he feels, I will always want him to say, my mother was a woman who took time to talk to me. My mother was a woman who she stressed the importance of communication, even when I didn't want to communicate. Even because I have a teenager, so teenagers they march to
They're
their own
the
beat.
worst people on earth. I was just telling Kat, like teenagers are the worst. They're going through so much, and we suffer for that. So, girl, you know what? My heart goes out to you.
So it's like the pull. It's a pull and tug with them. But you know what's interesting? I know when he closes his eyes and he goes to bed at night, he does know deep down inside my mother's willing to talk to me. And one of these things, I'll end with this, one of these practices that I put in very often with my child is being very vulnerable and transparent with him and telling him like, hey, I do these check-ins. And so I check in with him often. I'm like, listen, I want to know, how do you feel about our communication? Am I giving you what you need? Do you need something new from me in this season? Let me know how you feel about my listening skills. Do you feel like, sometimes when you talk to me, I need you to listen to me a little bit more, or sometimes you're a little snappy, because it's accountability, and it's also
Yeah,
teaching them how to emotionally communicate better. Even though they might not show it now, it's a seed that's being sowed.
it's
So
a
I
building
feel that
block.
yeah, and I'm hoping that it does resonate, and I do believe it will resonate, because when you look at them presently, it doesn't show it, but later on, I feel like not having my mom and wondering how she would have been, but having my dad and knowing what he did, so he was the person I pulled from. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
very aggressive. I'm very assertive. I'm very much like, don't even cry around me because I want to know what's wrong. Come on, talk about it. We cry later. Let me know. But the soft side of me, not having my mom, understands that I have to be a little bit more available in this space with him, and
yeah.
I don't know if I know Melanie has a boy. I don't know if you have a boy.
Girl, I
um
tried to avoid this. Why would you bring it up? Yes,
so, so I
different
have a
species.
11-year-old. He'll be 12 this year, and it's crazy because everything you said resonates. And for me, especially the fact of like the generations before us, we were pretty much seen, not heard, And it was crazy because I grew up with a mother who I was able to express what I was feeling. I was able to talk to her. I was able to have conversations. Whatever was going on, she wanted to know about it. We'd have open and honest communication. And it's crazy because when I was growing up, a lot of people thought that I was disrespectful because my mother let me communicate with her. And there was limits though. Like I couldn't just come out my face and say anything and expect to keep my teeth. Like I had to. There was a certain way I had to go about it. There was
Right.
certain ways I had to bring it to her for her to be like, okay, I'm going to listen, take what you say, and we can have a conversation about it. And that's the relationship I've tried to foster with my son. Like, I want him to feel free and comfortable talking to me about what's going on in school and what's going on in the world, and even to the extent of depending on what's going on, if my son curses, I'm not losing my shit over it because it could be he's relating to, like, one day it was funny because I asked him what happened in school and he said some little boy called another little boy a motherfucker. And as a parent, you're like, I'm supposed to tell him not to say that, but that's what happened. Like he's telling me what happened.
It
Like
was a
I
candid
can't be
moment.
mad at him. Yeah, so I'm like, I can't be mad at him because then he'll never come.
yeah,
He'll never feel comfortable coming to me for certain things if every time he says something, um,
Yeah.
I'm going off on him because he shouldn't have said that.
right.
Right.
And that's that building of that core memory. Cause it's like, think about it. Your son's going to be 12, right? And when he's
Mm-hmm.
16, because they're boys, they're 16, 17, inevitably they're gonna do that stupid ass thing that they did, that they need to call you 2, 3 in the morning where they ain't got no business being. But because you allow him to those moments, he's more likely to call you for his safety. And rather than worry
Exactly.
about you, I can't call my mom, she gonna be bugging, because you don't be bugging. Like, that's what I mean. I like to think about, I think a lot of people don't understand being a mother means having to constantly think 4, 5, 6 steps ahead. Like me and my son's dad, like he was like, "You always trying to direct shit." I'm not trying to direct shit, but I think stuff out. So today is not today. Today is today. But then when he gets into the situation tomorrow and next year, and as he's forming relationships with women, these things are going to play. And that's how my mind goes. You know what I mean? I think
Mm-hmm.
that's, and I don't think I'm special. I think a lot
Because
of
you're
moms are like,
experienced. You're
yes, yes.
experienced.
And it's like,
So
I just don't want the worst for you. You're already going to do stupid shit. You're not, my son is great, but you are not the exception to the rule. Let's just make the stupid shit be here and not here. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I want to pivot a little bit to our son's dad, since Kerrian had to point out that we all only got one child in the boy. I tried to get somebody who had multiple kids or a different kind of experience, but we making it work. um, so with your son's dad, how do you guys handle those affairs with the son's dad? Because no one is with their son's dad, right? Right. So how do y'all handle the relationship, the affairs, the everything with them? I know it ain't always peachy, because two people is gonna be have moments even when they're happy together. So how does that work for y'all?
I just let,
Interesting.
yes, yeah.
And a lot of it, from my point of view, is I am very to the point. I am a communicator. I'm going to tell you what it is, when it is, how it is. This is what's happening. His father, on the other hand, is not as open
Mm,
and is not someone who communicates in the same way or as effectively.
mm,
So my son has kind of like, he has one parent that talks too much and one parent that barely talks. And so what ends up happening is, you know, it becomes difficult when you're trying to work together for certain things, because here I'm saying this, that, and the next, and dad's not saying anything.
mm.
Um, so it's difficult, and my son has some of his dad's traits in that when he's mad or upset, he doesn't want to talk, and then I have to try to drag it out of him.
Did I make you
And
like suck your
yeah,
teeth? Like you just like your fucking father. Like they'll be giving you those moments in your head. So I'm like, oh, you
I
get that from your
literally
dad.
I literally had one day where both my son and his father rolled their eyes at me, and I said, if one more of you roll your eyes at me, I'm snatching eyeballs out sockets.
Been there. I get it. I get it. Yeah, like me and my son's dad, I think for the most part we are good, and I'm going to take a lot of credit for that, because I notice with a lot of things that he tends to follow my lead. And in case you guys don't realize that I kind of got that kind of headstrongness there. And I think, but we were good friends beforehand too, because I thoroughly believe you don't just go having a baby because you got pregnant. Not at my age. I had my son when I was 27. I knew better. You know what I mean? So that was gonna be my love of my life. We was KISSING, walking down the aisle type of shit. That's the reason why we had that child. Besides Shanice, because it's her fault. But like, it was that too. Like he was just that for me. So with the separation, oh, we finna be friends. My son is 9 years old, and that's a long time from us being able to address him singly without having to consult the other parent about decisions. Da, 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 da. But even so, it's not even just that. It's like there's no reason to have the stress of all the time beefing with you simply because we share a kid. You know what I mean? We don't got to hang out. We don't have to talk every single day, but there needs to be peace. There needs to be respect. There needs to be understanding. Now, do we have our moments? Ask him what was last Wednesday about, for sure. However, for the most part, there is that communication, because while you get on my fucking nerves, I don't not respect you as a man. you just get on my nerves as a co-parent in this moment. But I handle it in a way that this is the moment, this isn't the relationship. This negative shit doesn't cover everything. You know what I mean? So, like, with that being said, like, and I know this was something I had to learn, but like, do you expect in the parenting relationship, just him as a father, do you respect you from him? Like what you give into y'all's relation, what you give into y'all's parenting relationship with your kid, what your kid is getting from you guys? Do you expect him to meet you on that same level, or do you accept less from him if
I
that's what
think
you
that I think that your expectations should definitely derive from a place where you guys are constantly, let me say this, in the event if two people are very much aware that we evolve daily, right, as individuals, so we have to also evolve as parents.
Mm.
So the expectation you should have, or in my case, I believe you can have, and you're almost entitled to have this expectation because you're assuming that you're making this conscious decision to keep growing. I keep learning you, you keep learning me, we keep learning our child. However, that sounds beautiful in a perfect world.
Right.
That is not the case. So I would say that to your question, if that was the case from what I just explained, then yes, I would feel there is a level of expectation I should be able to have of that the other co-parent because you know how I go about things and vice versa, you know, and depend on the situation. And in our cases, we all have boy children. So, you know, especially the way society paints everything, the father's supposed to handle stuff a certain way. But not all men handle things the right way. Like you said, some women are headstrong. Some women are the disciplinary. Some women are not the walkover. You know what I'm saying? Some women are the ones that's like, listen, you need to keep this in order. You know what I'm saying? And so with that being said, I know in my case, I just I leave him where he's at and how he handles things with him. I will intervene in the event I feel this is something that I've been dealing with for a long time. And because I'm the communicator, I will make the executive decision to say, well, no, I'm going to handle this like this. And this is what's needed for you right now. Because, he might want to be your friend. And I'm not your friend. I'm responsible for you. Now, we're going to handle it this way. And then you and him could have a conversation later. And I just leave things like that. Like, we're not at the best. We don't really speak. So I try to give it enough respect where things are cordial enough and it doesn't have to become diabolical.
Mm. Yeah. I think for the evolution, I had to learn. Like when my son was first born, and I literally mean first born. I don't know why we're echoing, but when he was, we were new parents. He's never had a child. I've never had a child. Here we are, and like I said, stuff came natural to me, and I didn't see what came natural to me, and that was coming out of me so great. I didn't see that in him. You know what I mean? And I realized I'm not being fucking fair. I'm expecting this man to be this fucking amazing ass father. Not only has he never been a father, he doesn't have a maternal instinct. He didn't get 9 months building this child on the inside of him and feeling these things and understanding these things and having the same kind of present consciousness because the baby is growing in me. When his butt hit the left side of my stomach, I know that he does not. And I realized I'm not being fair. I'm giving you expectations that are impossible to stand up to because you've never done this before. The first time you go fucking jet skiing, if you fall off, is it a problem or are you learning? He had to learn, and I had to give him that space. I did have to check myself with that because it's like, who the fuck do you think you are? You had a baby for 3 months and you acting like motherfucking may I? You know what I mean? So I had to catch myself because that wasn't fair to him. However, now
That's a
he's
beautiful observation, though. Like, that's
it was
beautiful what you
necessary.
said. If I just want to give you your flowers and just making an observation, because I think women forget that it takes two to become pregnant, but we're the ones that's already in mommy mode from the time of
Yeah.
conception, right? So
Yeah.
you're already in protective mode. You're already in providing mode because the baby's already part of you. You have to be careful. You have everything surrounds with who am I for this next 9-10 months. So
Mm-hmm.
that's really yeah, that's really dope of you to make that realization, especially for the man, because I know a lot of men feel like, well, hey, I'm a part of this process, but women we don't see it like that. We're like, I'm carrying a baby, and it's
Right.
like, oh, you know what? Let me be a little fair to you because I've had the baby with me 9 months, and I'm experiencing this baby in a way that you aren't. So that's a
Mm-hmm.
really beautiful observation.
Yeah, thank you again, Shanice, because she had a baby at the same time I had a baby, and while we're talking to each other, I was able to see my situation mirrored in her because it wasn't a unique situation, and I'm like, that's not fair. So it really was things. The reason why I was able to have that is because I was able to see it right in front of me through someone else experience that kind of paralleled mine. So I think it
And
really did matter.
what also makes it difficult, like especially for men more so, is that, to what Carrie Ann said, we become mothers from conception. But with that, our mindset changes also.
Mm-hmm.
So here you're talking in 10 months, our whole mindset been changed and evolved, and we're a whole new person from the time we conceive to the time that baby's born. And mind you, this man is just sitting there kind of like, okay, like
Living
I'm
life.
here, this is happening, but nothing has changed, and it's hard to explain to them
Mm-hmm.
from our perspective because they'll never understand from our
Mm-mm.
perspective. They'll never carry a child. So it's like in our head, we're like, okay, now we have this responsibility, that responsibility, a whole nother human life. And there's the off chance that if daddy chooses to walk away, guess what? We still have to be mommy.
You still have to be mommy.
You know, daddy can walk away and we're still mommy, no matter what the situation is. So they're never going to understand that. And that makes it difficult a lot of times, especially when it comes to relationships, because I know from my perspective with my son's father, because of everything I was going through, and then on top of that, motherhood, I was forced to grow up 10 times quicker. So the person that he was dealing with and he was in a relationship with was evolving at warp speed, and he couldn't keep up with that because he didn't understand the level of things I was dealing with and the magnitude of what I was dealing with. And in all fairness, I was expecting him to show up in a way that he couldn't.
Mm. Understanding that though, how did that, like when you understood that you was expecting him to show up in a way that he couldn't, did that make you feel disappointed? Did you make you feel like upset, like, or would you like, all right, I need to chill?
So the sad part about it is I didn't realize that until after I was like done with our relationship.
Mm,
It took me to leave the relationship to then realize I was expecting too much from him.
mm,
And that fell on me. I was like, okay, I'm expecting him to be where I'm at, and he can't be where I'm at because he hasn't gone through what I went through.
right, right. That's so true. I think we
May I quickly interject? Because
absolutely.
this is my thing with parenthood. Even though they do not have the experience, like you said, that whole 10 months, because this has been a constant observation for me, and this has been also a constant topic of conversation for me. We still choose to be a mom. Yet you could have
Yes.
somebody who's a whole crack mama and not a maternal instinct has come alive. She's
Hmm.
still smoking crack. Like she's not taking she ain't taking her prenatals. You know what I'm saying? So I say that, or I should say a drug abuser, pardon me, a drug abuser and someone who doesn't responsibly take care of their seed. So with the men who, like you say, you having these expectations, it's like, hey, I may have had this baby 10 months prior, right? And you can't see the baby, but now the baby's here. There really shouldn't be no excuse. Even as a mom who's like, perfect point Melanie stated. Okay, being fair, observing that you need this space to kind of catch up, right?
Hmm.
But you still have to show up every day. You have to make a decision to evolve. You have to make a decision to be present. So even with motherhood, even with those who have the natural maternal instincts and it automatically kicks in, I feel like there is natural paternal instincts, right? You know,
Mhm.
my wife or my lady, you know, my baby mother had this baby. Where is the natural instincts to protect? Where's the natural instinct to provide? Where's the natural instinct to say, okay, I don't know this, but we're gonna figure this thing out together? So is that too much expectation to have from a person who's ill experienced? I don't
No,
think that's too much of an ask.
no. Sometimes we
No.
give them too much grace trying to be understanding. I think sometimes as mothers, trying to be understanding and not fit these stereotypes and these negative images, we do give too much grace to a man and we count it as ignorance and they count it as a learning experience. And sometimes it's just a decision to not want to do more. Sometimes it's as
Do
simple
you
as
want
that.
to be here? It's that simple. I
Yeah.
get it. You don't know how to be a father. Like you said, both of you guys, first time mom, first time dad. I don't know what I'm doing either. Did you think about that? But I have to show up every day. The baby's hungry.
Right, right. And it's like these things have to be done. You know, it's like for our son being born, my son's dad, his friend took him to, I think it's like a Chris Brown concert. It's like, I don't know, sometime the first, and within the first week that we've been home, I know it was within those first few days. And that's cool. You know, that's I guess, his push gift. I don't fucking know. But it's like, why are you out till 3 in the morning with a newborn? Because it's not a problem that you went, but even if I've never been a mother before, you know this baby ain't sleeping. You on paternity leave, I'm on maternity leave. We both here. This kid is up every hour and 45 minutes sucking on my goddamn titties. Why do you think that I couldn't use some reprieve and you could have went to the concert that probably ended around midnight or whatever, 3 in the morning? I'm stressed the fuck out. You leave me with this little football, and all I do is cry and eat and shit. Like, where is my partner? And I didn't give him grace at that time, and I don't feel like I was wrong for not giving him grace. I just think overall, I didn't let him be the father that he needed to be. That does not excuse you from that basic shit. Yeah, you need to buy diapers. Yeah, you need to feed this baby. Yeah, you need to be actively learning to do the things that these 9 months you didn't have. You need to now do that every day in person, but I need to give you room to do that. That's the only place that I will take any type of fault. I was not giving him room to do that because when you didn't do it the way I wanted you to do it, you hear my mouth. You
But
know,
was
and
he
y'all know the
communicating
pregnancy
with you?
hormone.
But was
Huh?
he communicating with you?
He's not very, I'm going to take the brunt of that. You know what I mean? Because it wasn't like we were arguing, but I definitely was like strong arming. And I know in his head, he probably was cursing me the fuck out. He's not that kind of guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I know in his head, he was cursing me the fuck out. But I did need to give him that room because you needed to do it. But then when my kid got older, and I'm not seeing the same thing. Okay, now that grace, that
It's
shit's in the
gone.
past. What's up? Like, because this is your time to
Because it
shine.
all stems from communication, and a lot of these men, they don't want to communicate. Like I always tell like my male friends, I'm like, listen, sometimes you guys think you got to just go above and beyond and do all of these grand gestures as a dad. I was like, a woman wants a man that's present.
Mm-hmm.
And
I
what
will.
is present? Babe, you know what? You've been with this baby all night. It's I'm on duty. Babe, you need to go for a walk. You know, it's the things that they don't think they should do. They just think that for the ones who are present, they think it's very monetary. Like, oh, like you said, I have to provide, I have to provide, I have to provide and protect. And it's like, I've been hearing this baby cry for 5 hours. Can I just get two? Can I just get two?
I just want to wash my
That's
ass real
communication, babe.
quick.
How are you feeling today? And you know, some men, not all men, some men are that's what they're lacking from fatherhood. Because like you say, you know, even how you're sitting here, you're making an observation like, oh, this is what I could have did better. This is what I know I did, the grace I should have given him. But now that grace, like you say, it comes to a stop. A lot of them, they're lacking that as far as like the co-parenting skills. Like you said, the conversation about expectations, all of this stuff. It's communication, and our men are just, you know, they're lacking that. They're lacking it as far as parenthood. And I think parenthood for us, especially as Black women, and the support that we need from our men would go different if we just communicated and understood each other's needs better.
I think it speaks to consideration altogether. Like I say this all the time, to be considered is to be loved. That is what that means, right?
Percent.
So, with that being said, because now I'm not, I'm not going into something where I feel like I'm lacking in that kind of consideration in any area. So now moving forward, none of us are with our son's dad, and I'm gonna ring on my finger. Do y'all? No. So at some point, either we are or will be or were dating, right? Because our kids are not little babies no more, been there, done that. So when it comes to the impact of the love life that you have now, or don't have. I don't know how it impacted you, but what does you being a mom, how does that play on what you got going on romantically, intimately, what you'll allow?
Oh wow.
My tolerance for nonsense is minimal.
Hmm.
Um, First off, I'm not going to introduce just anybody to my child.
Facts.
Um, so my child's not going to know anybody unless it's someone who I've been friends with for years.
Mm-hmm.
And, I just happen to hang out with them and introduce them to my son. But generally, if it's something that's going to be, I'm not sure where it's going, my son ain't meeting them. Um, in addition to that, I don't have time for somebody coming along and destroying what took me most of my life to build at this point.
Mm.
So I'm not going to tolerate but so much. Not only that, but I'm going to expect anyone I'm dealing with is going to be an example to my son at some point if it becomes serious. If I don't feel like you can be an example of a man to my son,
Yeah.
I can't I can't actively have you in front of him
Hmm.
if I don't feel like you're going to set a positive example for him. Granted, you're not his father and I don't expect you to be, but at the same time, the example of going back and forth to jail is not the example I want in my son's life.
Right.
So, with that being said, sorry, but this is not going to work.
Let me ask you, because I just want some clarity. So when you said like also like be an example to your son, does that mean like if you and this person get serious and now he is in your son's life, does that mean like you want him to like teach him things or have like man to man talks? Like what does that mean to you?
If that's something he is comfortable doing, now I do understand he might not be comfortable doing that because it's not his child. I do understand that. But if that's something he's comfortable doing, yeah, I want my son to be able to have a relationship with the person that I plan to be with. Because at the end of the day, as they say, if a guy marries you, he's marrying your children as well.
Hmm.
So he's gonna have to have some kind of relationship with my son, and my son's gonna have some kind of relationship with him. So I want it to be I want it to be a positive relationship. I want my son to be able to look up to whoever it is that, is in my life, and that person to be a positive example or role model of what a man is supposed to be.
I mm. So I don't I don't not want that. However, I don't think it's as impactful to me. I more so don't want anyone to be a negative influence. I don't look for you to actively be a positive influence. And what I mean by that is, like you said, I have no motherfucking jailbirds around my side. I'm not having a man who don't know no manners, don't know how to treat me right, don't know, I'm a man who's just sitting around doing nothing. You ain't had no job and you think you're gonna sit around and leech off of me. I'm not having those types of examples around my son. I wish for there to be some level of cordial with my son and this man. They cool or whatever. They don't gotta hang out, they don't gotta, he don't gotta be his favorite person because his positive example is his dad. You know what I mean? Like, what a man is like because you have a dad, you have an active dad, you have a dad who loves you, you love him. That is your example of a great man. That is the, you know what I mean? And however, when he grows up, how he chooses to take from his dad and apply it to himself or change it, that's his journey to go on. The man that I bring, I just don't want him to bring anything negative to my son. I'm not looking for you to do anything more than not fuck up around here. You know what I mean? And I think I said this before, and it's just because my husband is my business. So as long as you know that this man not treating your mama wrong or taking advantage of her or being disrespectful to you in this household, and that's as far as you go. And that's just me. And I don't think a lot of moms think that way. I think they think more on a like you, where we come as a package deal. So like you need to make sure you woo me and my son needs to agree. I don't. I don't. What about you, Carrie Ann? Where do you fall
I'm
on this?
I'm in between two of you guys. I agree with the two of you guys because especially because I have an older child.
Yeah.
I will be honest. I remember when I had my child, I was like, yeah, I'm just not gonna date. I was like, yeah, we got about 18 years of doing this thing solo, you know. And it's, because I was very big on, I'm not, there's only two men that's ever been in my son's life.
Mhm.
And um, the first one wasn't until like 2018.
Wow.
And exactly, wow. So, and even prior to that, it was still very brief, the me bringing them around him, because it was like, I just didn't know how to balance that because it was just always me and him. And
Mm.
so I was always, one thing I was like, I want my son to know that I'm a woman who respected myself. I never brought men around him. I'm not that woman anyway, but I definitely didn't want him to have that experience. I always thought about what my son would think about me and how he would treat another young lady when he becomes a man, right?
Mhm.
You're a man, you're a young man, and you're gonna be an older man. But remember, you come from a woman. That's one of the biggest things I always tell my child. And so I know that that stems from how he sees me as a woman, respect myself. But now that he's older and understanding that sometimes these children, they just feel entitled to your business.
Mm.
And so I believe there has to be boundaries because, fairly speaking, if you've done everything right, if you've been so very careful, if you've just set the example, your child should know who you are and the type of woman you are. And so I believe that there has to be a boundary where it's like, listen, this is my life. And honestly, like, trust that I'm going to make the decision, whatever that decision may be, because like you said, we're women. It might be a little 1-2. What if it's not something serious? You don't need to know about that. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? And some
Bedtime
kids,
is at 8:30. See you after that.
you know what I'm saying? And now it's like I done held it down for a long time, And so,
Hmm.
again, I'm not finna bring nobody around you that I'm not serious about. I don't
Hmm.
care if you heard me talking to this person for 2 years. If he ain't around, baby, he's not around for a reason.
Hmm.
And they have to learn that. And then not even learn that. It's like that's not even for you to question because
Right.
I did what I was supposed to do in this home. And
Right.
so I will say that it has impacted me a lot. Um, because I don't want to go through that phase of questioning. But then here's the other side of it, right? Oftentimes I would think like, wow, my son hasn't really experienced to the fullness of seeing his mom in this other light,
Mm.
right? And then you wonder like, okay, he like almost at times, and you guys tell me if you guys have ever felt like this because you see, Melanie, you were with your dad's, your son's father for a while, and so for me, it's like, you know, we're not just moms. We're not just someone who just gets up, nurtures the baby, cooks for the baby, protects the baby, shows up at the school. All of these things. Where we were, I always tell my son like I was a woman first before I was a mom.
I say it all the time.
Mhm.
You
I was a
know,
woman and an individual.
right.
Yes.
So, when they just see mommy come to the rescue. They don't know, well, in my case, they don't know the mommy who has someone who says, hey, I want to take you on a date. Let me get
Hmm.
dressed up and let mommy get, you know what I mean? He might see the mommy that goes out with her girls, but he don't really know the mommy that's gushing over the phone because somebody's making her blush or somebody
Hmm.
who's sending her little gifts because they're thinking about her. So there's a whole other side of a woman that he hasn't even really technically experienced to his fullness because I made a decision to not date. You know what I'm saying? So I often think about that, like, wow, now that he's older, I'm like, he's about to be up and out of this house. And sometimes I'm like, maybe I shouldn't have went about it that way, because he deserves, I think kids deserve to see that. Like, you
Yeah.
deserve to see your mother in a soft era. You deserve to see your mom in this era where it's just like, because this is real life, right? So now it's
Hmm.
like, but when he was small, I wasn't thinking like that. I was like, I got to protect him, be respectful, honor this home, honor my son.
So
And
let
so,
me
yeah.
let me ask you. I don't want to cut you off, but I want to. Well, I don't want to lose this point that you're making, and Cat for you too. So that's kind of like a sacrifice you made to not date, right? And there are other sacrifices we make all the time as moms, all the time. So
Yeah.
do you guys ever feel like the sacrifices weigh too much?
Oh, yeah. Sometimes
Yeah.
you feel like, what was I even thinking? And then sometimes it just weighs heavy on you. I share this often with like my close friends. Like sometimes, like I don't know if you guys has ever felt like this. Like some even with the decision making, some I don't know if you guys were ever in this space where it's like, oh, I gotta you like you said, we're constantly in this space of I gotta do this, I gotta do this, I gotta think this, I have to do this, and it's almost like you're gonna get it wrong. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And then sometimes it's like some of the sacrifices you make, they don't realize that I could have went this way, but I went this way. And then now
Mhm.
you have to love yourself as a woman and a mother based on this choice that you made, that this child, I don't know if you guys have ever heard someone say like, oh, it wasn't that child's fault that you had to make that decision. You're right. But I didn't know I was going to have to make that decision
Mhm.
until I became a mother and until I'm
Mhm.
at the point of making a decision. So
It's
it's
like,
not their
oh,
fault, but it doesn't change the fact that it's a sacrifice.
right. It's like it may not be that kid's fault, but the circumstances of this kid being my kid is why it happens. Right?
Hmm.
Right, Kat?
I can definitely attest to that because in everything that I have went through, I've had to make several sacrifices. And the biggest thing that people sometimes don't understand, like I have a cousin who we're really close and I love her to pieces, but sometimes I would do certain things and she wouldn't understand it, but she doesn't have kids. And
Mm,
it's like people who don't have kids don't understand that sometimes you have to move a certain way because of your kid. Like you can't just up, you have to be very strategic in how you do things, especially when you're by yourself and it's just you and your child. You
yeah.
know, you have to be very strategic with how you do things. It's going to cause you to sacrifice certain relationships, sacrifice certain job opportunities. You know, there's certain things you're going to miss out on. And it's not your child's fault
Mm,
because at the end of the day, you chose motherhood.
mhm.
Motherhood was a choice you made. So I'm not upset for any of my choices, but yes, sacrifice is a very real thing. And a lot of times the kids don't understand the level to which mom has to sacrifice to make sure that they're living the life they live.
But that's kind of a success because they shouldn't know the
Hmm.
sacrifice. They're
Yeah.
supposed to see the results. And like as they get older, like Carrie said, they should see us as more than just mom. But we need to be super in their eyes. It's kind of like how you want to be as pure in your parents' eyes as possible, even though they know you busting it open because you already spit out a kid. You're never gonna talk about it, right? So for our kids, we need to be as close to Superwoman like we are the standard. When my son starts dating, I fully believe and I really hope that when he looks to the woman that he wants to be with, he thinks of the woman that he has loved from the moment he knew what love was, and vice versa, which is why, those sacrifices are worth it because I'm giving you all these things and I'm sacrificing to make sure you get all of these things. So hopefully, when you go to live your life, those good things can come out of you and help you make these good decisions. You know what I mean?
But we're not
I,
perfect. We're
no,
not
no, no.
perfect.
We're never going to be perfect, but you got to try. The thing is, I think I grew up. You understand what I'm saying? I grew up in a house. I had my mom. I had a bunch of kids, and my mother had a bunch of kids in there. And I don't feel like we were ever raised. So like nobody sat down teaching me life lessons and guiding me with these routines and whatnot. I grew up, and whatever I became was whatever my experience and environment dictated. And putting more intention into my son helps me to feel better about the possibility of him taking what I give him to give out. That's all I mean when I say
For
I'm doing these
sure.
sacrifices.
For sure.
But I
I
did
make
want to
it
speak to. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No,
I
no.
make it a point to tell my son, and I try to remind him of this because, like, you know, when you're growing up, your parents usually are like your superheroes. And that's all fine and dandy until you grow up and realize, oh, mom and dad had some issues.
Mm,
So I make it a point to tell my son, at the end of the day, yes, I'm mom. Yes, you may think I'm a great mom or I'm the best, but at the end of the day, I'm only human.
mm-hmm,
I want him to understand that yes, mom does her best, but she's going to make mistakes.
mm-hmm.
She's going to fall short of your expectations from time to time. She's not going to be perfect. She sometimes may not even show up in the way you want her to, but she's doing the best that she can from day to day.
Let me ask you. Like I was 27 when I had my son, and I believe that having my child at 27 as opposed to like 23 really makes a huge difference in this journey that I went on and this experience that my kid is having. How much do you guys feel age impacted
your parenting?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You think about it, people are not even finding themselves until they're 30.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? You understand? Like, I learn new stuff about me every year. I be like, oh, you know what I'm saying? And so I say that to say is that when you're a young adult going into motherhood, because I had my baby at 20, so that means I got pregnant at 19.
Mm.
And, you know, life is waiting for you, right? All of the endless possibilities of what you can do, the potential that you could tap into, all of that stops once you're just thinking about a baby. You haven't even experienced life for yourself yet. You
Mm.
haven't even gone out there and done certain things that you could look back in time and say, that's why I believe that when people have their children when they're older, it is a different type of lifestyle in that home. You know, even if the parents separate, you know, there's still a different type of we're saying this if this is from like a healthy place. Let me say that because a lot of people out here are not healthy, and it don't matter what age you have in them kids. I'm saying this from people who have, you know, career, you know, graduated, career, settled down, met the person, married, didn't get married, but finances in order, mental health is in order. Like if in the perfect world, if it's going in that order, right? But when you're young and now you have to take care of somebody and you haven't even found yourself, that's why a lot of people, they go on these journeys with their kids, right? So I do believe that age plays a huge role in how you raise a child, your values, your morals, everything. It plays a huge role. It plays a huge
But what
role.
about for you? Like we know it plays a role, but like for you, did it color so much? Like I know someone who had a baby and she was 18, right? And she was excited. She was excited, right? I can't relate, but she was excited. And then when she had that baby, he crashed and burned because you're 18 and all your friends are 18 and they're going doing 18-year-old things and you got this baby, and it was exciting when you were cute at your baby shower. It was exciting when everybody was catering to you and making sure you're taken care of. But when you had that baby after those first 3 days and people saw that baby, they went about their lives and you are stuck with that baby at 18 and you didn't get to do those things that your friends did. You wasn't going off to college. You wasn't going out to the clubs. You was making bottles and breastfeeding and bringing the daycare, having to make the money work because you had to get a place. You understand what I'm saying? So that's what
Yeah,
I'm
you're
saying.
right. It
That's what I'm.
affected me. It affected me for sure because, like I said, the uncertainty of what's waiting on the other side post delivery,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
That's when it's like it was already real when the belly was growing, but now the endless waking up at nights, the breastfeeding, the having to work, having to juggle, who's gonna watch the baby? Like I'm just the constant looking at the child and realizing I'm responsible for another human being. Like,
Everything.
how did I not go through postpartum depression? Because I was like, this is a real, this thing has arms and legs. You know, I was like, oh, it breathes like me. You know, it's you.
But it's
You know,
not a
you know how
dog.
we went through the first phase of like before we gave the babies the first bath, and then you know, I remember like my friend's mother was really dear and close to me, and I remember being so afraid to bathe the baby. She was like, "Child, move." You hurt the baby. And then when you realize, like, oh, they fragile, but they not really that fragile. Because you know, y'all
Mm-hmm.
know, once I got that first bat under, you was like, baby, I'm a pro at this. You understand?
Right?
But
Like, watch me.
yes, it's like the life changed completely. Like, you know, my dreams of doing so many things was like, wow, even if I were to attain those things, it's not going to be easy.
Yeah.
It's not going to be easy, and no one's coming to your rescue.
Nah.
Like
So
you made this bed and you chose to lay in it. You didn't
you
abandon
spread your
shit.
legs when you was in it and made a motherfucking baby. You see? You see?
You chose that bed. That's why I always say you chose that bed and you made to lay in it. But it changes the reality of like just the way you view life, the way you view yourself. Like you said, you know, constantly looking at yourself, and it's like this constant, you got to grow up. You got to grow. You don't got to figure it out, but you got to grow up. And then everything that comes with it after, like she said, it was just straight survival mode because it wasn't something that you planned for. Versus someone who's like, I'm going to go to college and I have all of these aspirations to do X, Y, and Z, and the baby's not in it and they stick to it. At least they have those goals. But when you doing big grown people things, but you're not planning for it. but you still end up with the consequences or the actions. Let me say, your actions led you to this is the results of it. But you're like, I didn't plan for that. But baby, this is adulthood. We
Like,
are here. What you gonna
you
do?
did the thing and the stuff and
And it was like it's really a possibility that this could happen. You know that,
like
right?
we be acting like
So
it's not.
for me,
Isn't
I
that
think for
crazy?
myself, yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like it was like, oh, okay, oh, that
Like,
applies to
that's not
me,
gonna happen to
you
me.
know?
Like, and then it happened. And it's like, oh shit.
It's like, yeah, your uterus works. Your uterus works, you know?
Oh, them swimmers can swim.
So right. So for me, it impacted me tremendously to this day. But you know, like she said, when you're in survival mode, we figure it out and we just keep going. But there's always that little what if. Not what if
Mm,
like you regret your baby, but it's that what would life had looked like if I moved more responsibly. And not say that I was being irresponsible, but because it only takes one time, right? But
mhm.
yeah, it's there's a life that I didn't live because I had a baby. That's
I
the
was
thing.
gonna ask that. So, Kat, Kerrian just answered, but like, what do you think about the what if? Do you do the what if? Do you feel guilty for thinking about the what if?
No. And I tell people the reason I don't is because my son saved my life.
Mm,
Um, because me and my mother were so close, losing her, my son gave me a reason to live
mm,
without her.
mm,
So I don't think about the what if because in my mind, the what if is what if God didn't make it so that way I was pregnant when I lost my mother?
mm,
Because I would have probably succumbed to drugs, alcohol abuse, all sorts of different types of things that would have been a detriment to me.
mm.
I couldn't succumb to that because I was pregnant. Like you, Mel, I was 27 when I had my son.
Hey.
So I had already did all the partying I was going to do. I was partied out by that point. I had did the college, graduated, was working. So for all intents and purposes, I was doing okay up until, losing my parents. But I never think about the what if because my son, if it wasn't for him, my life would have took a different turn and it
Mm.
probably wouldn't have been a good
Girl, let me tell you something. I do the
Wait, can
what
I
if.
just? I want to just to clear something up. My what if is more from a place like not regret. I don't regret my son because I too believe that everything does happen for a reason. And with me, I do believe that God. I believe my son is the biggest blessing. It's too many things that happened over the years. It's like, yeah, you was meant to be here. Even if your mama wasn't
one.
ready, you was meant to be here. My what if is more like you can't help but to think about what happened if I had went away to school and I pledged at 18? I think about things like that because of certain goals I wanted. That's what I meant.
I think about it directly. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you.
Right?
I'm like, well, what if I didn't have my son?
What would life
I
look
will
like for
say
me?
it's not a thing about regret, but I think there needs to be a place for
Very
honesty. I
true.
think as mothers, we do not get the space to say these things without being fair and of being looked at as, oh my God, Cruella DeVille. But like I said earlier, one thing nobody can ever come at me about is two things actually is my belief in God and the love I have for my son. I'm a fucking good ass mother, and it ain't a soul on earth that can come and tell me that. If niggas want to come from the sky and try to tell me that, I'm telling them shut the fuck up because you're wrong. So that gives me, I know I can say some shit like, oh, I think about the what if all the time, and it's not, I don't have no type of, I don't have to be embarrassed or hesitant because it's great over here. My child, it's great over here. But I do think about the what if because I didn't plan to get pregnant, and that's just the kind of person I am. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? When I was in college and I came from Syracuse and I went to U Albany, I was like, damn, what if I would have went to Howard because I got in, but I couldn't go because I was poor. And guess what? You can't do shit when you're poor. You know what I mean? So I think about what if I didn't have my son? What would my life be like right now? And I don't do it often, but when the moment comes and it sparks in my head, let's go
Right.
with it. It's
Right.
just a fucking thought. There is no guilt in this thought because I do not have regrets. I don't feel like I wish for something different. I'm just entertaining a different possibility. I will always do the what if with everything. What if we had somebody on here who was a bad mother who had her kids taken from CPS? Ta-da! You see what I'm saying? There's no fault in it. And I
What
think,
if Trump didn't make it into office?
what if somebody woke up tomorrow and just did it? You know what the fuck I'm talking about. We ain't even finna go there. But with that being said, like I don't feel a need to have to justify things to people
To
because like I said,
explain.
right, like I know, I know, but I do not believe that is the case for everybody. So when it comes to things like mothering, we and we as mothers, I'm talking about, it don't matter what species, what part of the world you in, we as mothers have a hesitancy to speak about the negative parts of motherhood because yes, our kids are blessings. Yes, our struggle is a sign of strength, but there are just some shit where we just want to complain or we just want to say, oh, you, and we can't because that's going to color you. I don't believe you should be colored in your worst mistake. I don't believe you should be colored in one lone statement. But sometimes when you do that, it's so impactful. That is now who you are to outside viewers. Like, how do you guys feel about having a space to be honest about the negative parts of parenting?
So I don't care about none of that. I don't care about none of that. Because like you said, no one's there with you in your darkest moments, your beautiful moments. Like you, especially when you know you are a good mom. I too can relate to you in terms of your sentiments about there's too many people who know how hard I go for my son. No, I don't play about my son standing 6'4", 6'5". Baby, I still don't play about my child. You understand what I'm saying? And I
Mm-hmm.
know mothers and fathers, um, as a whole, who feel like that about their children. You're not explaining that to nobody. There's nothing to explain. I don't have to prove myself. I don't need no validation about the type of mom I am. So when it comes to spaces where, in the event, if I feel negative about somebody, like I tell people all the time, like I said, I didn't want to have kids, and I can say that in front of my child. He has nothing to do with that. That was just based on how I was raised in my home. I truly didn't want to have kids because I wasn't raised with a mom. So I was just like, I don't know how to be no mother. That's what I was thinking about growing up. That has nothing to do with my kid. So, and my kid is loved and I love on him. So it'll be different if a child was like, oh, I can see why she ain't want to have no kids. She treat me like she don't want to have no kids. He
Mm-hmm.
don't got that experience. You get what
Right.
I'm saying?
Right.
So I feel that women, is very important for us as mothers to just have a circle of friends, in that group that we can really confide in. Because you have some women who also, some mothers who would look at you and like, "Ugh," clutch their purse, like, how dare you say such a thing? You know what I'm saying? And it's just like, it's a real emotion. It's a real thought. It's a real feeling. Like, I'm not super mommy every day. But you know what I'm saying? Baby, I
Yeah.
left that cape at home. And if you ask me, I might not go pick it up when I go back home. You know what I'm saying? So it's
Mm-hmm.
just like you have to know where you are and who you're surrounded by and who is your support system. I think people who don't have support feel like that. People who
Yeah.
don't have somebody to love on them. People who don't have somebody say, hey, you know what? I'm just checking in with you, let you know you're doing a damn good job. And if ain't nobody tell you all week, I see your child every day and I see how he looks, I see how she looks. Beautiful job you're doing. Their manners, they carry themselves well, they're clean. The little things that show like your child comes from somewhere where somebody cares about them before they even open their mouth. Some people don't have that. They don't have somebody say, you know what, let me give you a hug because it might be hard. You know
Right.
what? But this is just my reminder to let you know, keep going. Don't stop. Those are the people I feel that they wouldn't have it easy when it comes to expressing themselves so freely and feeling like they have to justify everything and seek validation. It's like I'm not seeking validation from nobody because when things go left or right, I know who's around me and I know who's not around me. But we as mothers know what we go through in our home.
Yes.
Even if you have somebody to confide in, you still the one that's going through the stuff. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You have
Yeah.
to figure it out. You got to make the ins and outs work. You got to sit down. Ain't nobody with me when I'm sitting down here on my bed and we in the living room and we talking for 4 or 5 hours. Y'all not around. So
Right.
I don't. When it comes to me, baby, no, I don't
So.
listen. If I wonder about he getting on my nerves today, but I will be honest and say when he was younger, again, I did have a lot of those guilty feelings. I did.
Mm-hmm.
But God is good because, and I do have people in my life that support me enough that I have plenty people who has come. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? Even when it hasn't been consistent, but they said you have to stop and you have to be very present in what you do have. And you have to be grateful. So even if I didn't have it consistently, I had it enough where people saw what I was doing with my child and they saw him and the product and they would just give me my flowers. You know what I'm saying? Without me asking. And then I know what I'm doing. But I thank God for that growth in that because we as mothers, we grow from who our children were from as a newborn to whatever age they are now, we grow in our, like you say, in our strength, in our awareness as moms, and that's
Hmm.
definitely been something I've experienced. So girl, I'll explain nothing to nobody.
Let me ask a question, because just speaking to the validation thing, right? So we're all moms. We all have boys. We all have a child. And we all are single. So do you ever hold it against yourself for becoming a mother instead of becoming a wife, or before becoming a wife?
Ooh, cat, go ahead.
No, because initially that was my intention. Like me
Mhm.
and my son's father, one, we were high school sweethearts. Two, we intended to get married, but it didn't quite work out that way, and things happened. And
Mhm.
even when it came to, my son saw us together for the first 10 years of his life,
Mhm.
for the first 9, 10 years of his life. So he did see that side of mommy in a relationship. Um, the thing is, it didn't work out. And I explain to my son all the time, I'm like, listen, sometimes with adults, it's complicated. Things don't always go the way that they anticipate it going or that they plan it to go. And it has nothing to do with him. It's not his fault, because I know a lot of times kids internalize, oh, mommy and daddy broke up because of something I did. No, that's not what it was. And I made sure to tell him, I'm like, listen, daddy may find a new girlfriend, mommy may find a new boyfriend. It doesn't change how we feel about you.
Mm.
It doesn't change
Right.
our relationship with you. At the end of the day, my priority, whether I find a new boyfriend, husband, whatever the case may be or not, is always going to be my son. So me and his father, we maintain a friendship because we were friends before we were even in a relationship. So we maintain a friendship, we co-parent, we do what we have to do for him, and he knows that mommy and daddy love him because we show up for him when we need to.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I'll say I don't hold it against me for doing that. However, I do notice the impact that it has because I did it that way. So the impact on my son, for example, when me and his dad separated, that's something he noticed. You know what I mean? And while it was definitely a smooth transition, because even before our breakup, there wasn't a whole bunch of arguing or tension or anything. You know what I mean? And then it worked out because his dad was kind of away taking care of his mom a little bit, so he was at her house a lot, as it was. So right in the middle of it, so it was like a smooth transition there. But when my child realized, oh, they're not together, there was comments, you know what I mean? Like, I give my son the freedom, like you guys, I give him the freedom to talk to me, because first of all, you need to learn how to talk to people. People need to learn how to talk to you, because I make sure that he is going to demand respect. I don't care how little you are. Nobody has the right to speak to you in a way that you don't feel comfortable with. And so that
Mm-hmm.
starts at home. That means I don't give him that either. And when I did one time, I yelled at his ass or something, and he was like, you tell me don't let people talk to me just any kind of way, and I don't like the way you're talking to me. And I was like, but I was trying to teach him that lesson at that time, so I had to roll with those punches. But that means that he's able to voice to me these thoughts that I couldn't say this shit to my mother. I'd have got punched in the fucking mouth. You know what I mean? But he's able to say that to me. So, like, as far as us not being married, that's not something that bothered him. It was just us not being together. I think if we had gotten married, then yeah, we probably fight more for a marriage than you would just a regular relationship, regardless of the hardships, right? Not getting into it, whatever. But as far as myself, I think only now it probably is something that stands out to me. And it's because I've never thought about the fact that I have one child. And my child is very smart. My child is going to do some great shit. You know what I mean? He's probably going to get scholarships to go to some college, God willing, it to be a HBCU, because, we pro black over here. But there ain't none of them where I'm at. That means my kid in 9 years is going to go away to college, and he's going to live his life. And that means he's probably not going to come back here if this is where I am. And I love that for him. But I've never thought about it from my point of view. He's going to be off living his life, doing his thing, making his own family and his way. And I have no other children, and I'm not having no other children, and I have no husband, and I don't have no man who could possibly be my husband. So when my kid leaves, I'm probably going to be the mom that sees her kid once or twice a year because of distance and travel, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh shit, I think I want a life companion, because I don't want to, my kids going to college, I'm going to be like 45. I got a lot of life left to years. Like, excuse me, mama got to have a life too. But I don't want to be out there on fucking Hinge. I don't want to be getting chatted up in the grocery store. You understand what I'm saying? So that's what made me think about it. Like, dang, I do want to get married. That hasn't been something I've always wanted. It's a very recent kind of thing for me. But it definitely, I don't hold it against myself for having my son first. But it is something I probably would have done differently if I had given it more thought back when it was prevalent. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I can agree that you always hear people say, make sure you have a life because when they leave your house, yeah. Um, but life happens, right? And we can't, even for those who plan it, life still happens, you know? So I know for me, I've always been like a solo driven person. Like, where am I personally for myself? And although I do know and see that there is, I feel like a life companion only works if it's something that is working, right? So even though I'm not dating, I'm not against it. I do get little offers and interest here and there. Um, but I've also been this woman who I feel like I just really march to my own beat. And I feel like I'm trying to, at times, get acclimated back into the world amongst the male species. And I do get approached. I do, and I've had different scenarios over a period of time. But um, there's a different level of contentment you have when you're single. You just do things and like I say, you just march to your own beat. And
Mhm.
so I say that to say it would be nice. I agree to have a life companion because when your children do go on about their life, you don't want to be that woman at home that's like, oh, so what do I do? Because I'll say even now, like, I'm very intentional about thinking about like my hobbies and things that I want to do. How do I want to transition? And I don't want that to be a transition when they're out of the house. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? I don't want it to be that sob story. And not saying that's how I feel now. I just feel like you got to kind of have something for yourself first, even before a companion. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Because now your companion comes along. Your companion's supposed to be there to enjoy things with you.
Mhm.
And I just hope that I create enough space for myself where I'm content enough with my space without in my space without my son present. That if a companion was to come along, that can be a smooth transition for me. You know
Mhm.
what I'm saying? Because it could potentially be something I'm so uncomfortable with because of all I know.
Right, right.
But I'm open to it. I just want to make sure that I'm always putting me first in a space where I'm continuously content without my child or
Yes.
without a mate. Because
Yes.
that's where the real love lies. You know what I'm
That is where
saying?
the
If I
real
don't have a
love.
companion, I'm still gonna travel this world, baby. And we gonna be on
Hello?
somebody's beach just
Because life
doing
don't
what we
stop.
do.
What they say, one monkey don't stop no show. So one last question before we go, just to finish it off right on this same note. And I'll just speak from my personal experience. When I was with my son's dad, I just knew that was my end goal, right? I knew when I was gray and my titties was down to my knees, he was gonna be on my side, right? I knew it because I just knew it, and then he wasn't. So that means I had to enter back into the world of dating. But now I'm dating as a mom, and I've never dated anybody but my son's dad, so I didn't have to explain shit, right? So going back out there, I didn't feel like damaged goods per se, but I did understand that my level of desirability is stunted because the statistic of being a single mom it's attached to me. You know what I mean? And I think while I'm definitely the kind of person, I'm confident, blah, 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 nobody can tell me anything about myself. I'm also very realistic and very aware. And I know that me being 30 plus with one child, I'm just not an option for some people, right? And it means that I also have to explain this and I have to see the reaction and I have to measure how sincere this person is based on it. And that's something that definitely gave me trepidation and hesitation going into the dating field, because I'm like, I think I'm a 10, but I got these notches that's knocking me down. And that I did wear that just subconsciously, but it was something that I was definitely aware of. Did you guys experience, or do you experience that sort of moment when it comes to dating?
I can't say I have.
Mm,
Um, and it's not like it's a situation where it's not something I've really ever thought about, I think. Like, to Carrie's point, my goal my after my relationship ended with my son's father was more so self-love at this point, because what people don't tell you, when you're with your high school sweetheart, you lose your identity.
Mm.
Because of the length of time that you're dating this person, then to have a child, I was busy, like, for the last, we've been broken up for what, 5 years now? The last 5 years has been me finding me.
Mm.
So it's never something that crossed my mind or I was concerned about, because it's just, okay, do I love myself before anyone else could love me?
Mm.
So it's just never been something I really ever thought of or
Mm.
was concerned with.
I agree. I agree. You don't think I agree. That's why I was like, this marching to my own beat. That's why I was like, that contentment that you have being single. And again, that was a part of my survival mode. My survival mode was also like, I got this person and everything else life is throwing at me to be like my focal point. And it's so interesting. I was having this conversation with another person a couple of months back, and how you would have some women who parent, single mom or not, like especially mothers, they'll go out there and they'll look for a person. They're like,
Mm.
they're not even, they're like, this is their agenda. You know, like I have to find someone to be with me. And I know this to be true because I know women like that. And it's,
Mm.
you know, and they always seem to be the ones who end up with somebody. They always
Mm.
seem- and that was just me. Like, meanwhile, the women like myself who's just like not looking for it, chilling, minding my business. If it happens, it happens. But I'm like Kat said, it's just I don't want to be the woman who gets into a situation with another person. And they see I have the opposite. I'm someone who you guys both experience relationships where you guys are with your partners for a long period of time and your children got to see you. That wasn't my case. So
Mm.
I've been marching to my own beat intentionally for a while. So now you say, like, with you making this realization, Melanie, we're like, oh, here's some of these notches and here's some of these things to consider. I'm like, I've been doing this for so long, it's like it's nothing to be like I got a child. It's either you with it or you're not with it. Like you
Mm.
said, you know what I'm saying? And if you're not with it, it's not gonna be like, woe is me. I'm gonna just keep pushing because I'm not looking for it anyway. You know what I'm saying? And anybody who knows me, I'm always with my son. So if I'm not with my son, I'm by myself. So you ain't gonna not see him, you know? But to Kat's point, the self love part is very relevant. I think for anybody, wherever they are on their journey, you want to make sure that you're putting yourself first so you can be the best version of yourself. So if a companion comes along, you know, whether you're healed mentally, spiritually, emotionally, you're just the best version of you. You know what I'm saying? And you need to be the first partake of that. You know, you need to be the first
Mm.
partaker of that before anyone else. You know, you deserve to know what it is to love yourself wholeheartedly so that even if you were to meet somebody that didn't work out, you have so much love in yourself that you could bounce back, you know?
I think that's why I'm able to say that, because I have so much love for me. Like, there's no question. I love me. Only person I love more than me is Malachi. You know what I mean? So I think because that's not something that I question. Um, I have hobbies. My life is really full. You know what I mean? And even while I was with his dad, that was going to be the love of my life. I never lost myself while I was with him. I didn't feel like, oh, you've become part of my identity. No, no, no. This show is only big enough for me in it, and you can be a co-star sometimes. But I never had that, so I think that's why I was able to have those thoughts there. You
I
know,
wish I would have known that sooner. I learned that later on in life, because when you're dating someone from the time you're like 13, 14 years old, you still haven't figured out who the hell you are. So I didn't learn that until I got older, and I was like, I have lost myself from being in a relationship. But then again, I never really knew who I was to begin with.
yeah, you were young. You were in freaking
Hmm.
high school. Like, you can't know who
Right.
you are because you're not who you are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so
So,
true. That's so
Yeah,
but
I
true.
guess
I
it's
wish
time to
that's
go. My
something I
kid is
wish I
over here
knew.
signaling to me that he wants freaking honey buns at 8:51. That's not happening. No, but ladies, I think this has been a very honest and transparent conversation. I think it's one that a lot of people don't have when they speak of motherhood. So thank you both for coming on here with your inputs and all your experiences and your honesty. Thank you so much. Love you guys.
Nice
And
to
I
meet
will
you,
see
Kat.
you later. So that was our episode for today. I think we had a real honest and transparent conversation about motherhood on some topics that maybe people don't usually touch too much. So thank you, Kat. Thank you, Kerrian. As usual, please like, follow, share, and subscribe. We are on Instagram at Related Conversations Podcast. Also, DM us there if you want to be a guest on our podcast, as well as follow us on TikTok and YouTube at Related Conversations. And we are also on Spotify and Facebook. I keep forgetting Facebook. Related Conversations with Melanie on both. So please like, follow, share, and subscribe. And we'll see you next time. Chat later.